6 o'clock. Richard, Nancy, and I are all here, so full attendance. Everyone, please be advised that the meeting is apparently being recorded for future use for whatever reasons, for usage. So you are hereby notified.
If people ever make a public records request, we'll say look it
Well,
up.
I'm not sure you can make a public records request of a private citizen.
Oh,
So that's a whole other issue. This is not a government recording.
okay.
It's not a neighborhood council recording. It's a private
Okay.
citizen recording. Alrighty. Let me see. Everybody's here. Approval of minutes from the January 23rd meeting. I gave everybody earlier today. We're all good?
Yeah.
Approved by acclamation. The only update I have is that everything on this agenda, as it is with other agendas for this bylaws meeting, is because there are issues that have come up in one or more board members or one or more stakeholders that ask that they be addressed. We simply look at them, see if they pass our muster, and basically, does it make sense? Is it going to fly? And then it's up to the board to approve, disapprove, and even after that, it's up to the city whether or not we're allowed to exercise the powers we're supposed to be able to exercise. That in mind, public comments, non-agenda items. I don't have any, so we'll skip that, and therefore we have no replies. It was 1800. Alrighty, moving right along to presentation, discussion, possible motion regarding adding a forward to the SCNC bylaws. I'll read the forward. You people have already seen it. The bylaws and operatives just would be at the very beginning of the bylaws before Article 1 or before the preamble that we're going to discuss next, assuming it's approved. The forward will read as follows. The bylaws and operating procedures of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, SCNC, have been painstakingly crafted from the official template provided to the city, often by direct quotes, and reflects the unique nature of Studio City and the experience of the board over the years. Each and every change was voted on by the board and then approved by the city prior to taking effect. However, these documents are not to be considered by SCNC stakeholders as hard and fast rules for the conduct of board activities, but rather as more of a nebulous set of guidelines, since they can and have been arbitrarily and peremptorily changed, abrogated, ignored, or discarded by various city agencies such as the Board of Neighborhood Council, BONC, the Office of the City Attorney and City Clerk, and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, done without any explanation or justification. Stakeholders should consider the contents of these bylaws and their subordinate operating procedures in that light. I like to think of this as the truth in advertising preamble for the notification for our bylaws. Any questions from you
I'm
two?
concerned with the done shooting down all the adverbs and adjectives. I'm sure everything else was okay, but I think they're gonna not like the way it's phrased.
Okay,
Well-
can you give me some background here, Richard?
Well, and this goes back long before even I was on this committee years ago. Our bylaws are approved by the city. They're voted on over and over again. It's tweaked, and the city attorney goes, oh no, you got to change this and that. And they finally get approved, and God and everybody and their grandmother rains down on it, and they're posted, and that's how we're supposed to do. Then the next election comes along, and city clerk goes, no, that's not the definition for your seat. Or something happens, we go,
Got
okay,
it.
this is what it's supposed to do, and the
Got
city
it.
attorney goes, oh, no, that doesn't really apply.
I understand.
So this is based on years of frustration from people who keep saying, why do we have these hard and fast written rules if they don't actually mean anything? So it's simply a truth in advertising to anybody who goes in the future to quote our bylaws and go, well, hey, this is the way this is supposed to happen. And then somebody at Dunn or somebody at the city clerk's office or somebody at the city attorney's office goes, no, au contraire, moose breath, we're going to do it this way.
Okay, like, I understand the frustration completely. This cannot be part of the bylaws, though. You can't
No,
have
it's a forward.
I don't even know what that means.
I think it's gonna
According
get
to
shot down,
parliamentary
that's fine.
procedure, there's no such thing as a forward on your bylaws.
Is there a forward in that book?
Fine, like a letter from the chairman or a letter from the chair of the bylaws committee.
No, it's just like a letter from the board of the stakeholders to say, hey, yes, these are bylaws, but they can be revoked, reneged, or ignored at any time by any power above us. And all that is truth in advertising, because there's more than one person in this room who's relied on the bylaws in the past only to be told that they don't really mean what they say. Whether it comes to removal of a board officer or a board member, or elections, or anything else. So all we're doing is telling the stakeholders, yeah, we got bylaws, but, you know, better ask the city before you start counting on them.
I don't think that the Duns want to have.
That's Dunn's problem.
Truth in advertising.
That's Dunn's problem.
Okay, well.
Board members asked me to bring this. I wrote it up. I asked for input from you folks. And, you know, other than the adjective thing, once again, that's Dunn's prerogative. They want to put some restriction, or they tell us we can't have any of it. But it's up to the board to vote whether or not they want to go there.
I can appreciate, because if you want to add it to the bylaws, you're going to have to get it approved
Yeah.
by Dunn, which
Yeah.
ain't going to happen. So
Fine, let them go on record that we can't tell the truth about our bylaws.
well, so my vote will be that this is a letter to the community from the bylaws committee or from the chair or from whoever else, you know, it should be from.
Right now, it's nothing until the board votes on it.
Well, you can still have it,
Yeah.
whether it's posted or
But
whether,
the
you know.
way to bring this and to bring it forward, whether or not it gets approved by the city, and I agree with you, the city's likely to have a shit hemorrhage and say no, but that's their privilege. I just want to go on record as saying, no, you can't tell the truth about how we do things.
Okay, well, I'm ready to take a vote.
All in favor? Then, of course, this will be a motion, and the motion will read something along the lines of, the Board of the Studio City hereby votes to add a forward to our bylaws that reads as follows, to be placed at the very top of the bylaws prior to Preamble in Article 1.
Okay.
I would be happier if it was just sent to the board, let them.
It has to be a motion, or the board can't vote on it.
Yeah, but you can make a motion without recommendation.
No, Richard,
I have a problem with.
then
Again,
bring that up at the board, and if they want to change it, it's the board's prerogative to amend it. I asked you for input earlier. So, all in favor of submitting this as a motion to the board? I'm voting yes.
I can't.
I think it's dangerous.
I can't.
It's the board's choice. Let the board
Then basically send it forward without recommendation
then vote to say yes, so it goes to the board. It has to be voted on as a motion, and it has to come out of committee before the board can consider it.
I'm afraid of the wording, I really am.
Well, what wording do you not like?
Anything that looks like it's despairing, I would view that to have to basically control us. And several places there look like it's kind of disparaging.
How can telling the truth be possibly disparaging?
Well, they say
The only reason anybody could possibly take it as being disparaging because it tells the truth about their prior actions.
I don't think that it's going to get through. And I don't
But that's the board's choice.
I don't wanna
Just
fool.
like, remember 2 weeks ago on the youth vote? Same concept. Let's send it to the board, let the board vote on it. And you can raise all your questions and doubts there. And you also have a whole week to come up with alternative verbiage. And if you bring it up as a board member at the meeting, I will entertain it as a friendly amendment.
I just don't think it's politically wise to put this in there.
Politically wise has nothing to do with it.
I think it does. I don't want to be shot down in other areas by the Dunn or city attorney's office. I don't want them to.
Wait, you mean like they suddenly say that our bylaws don't mean what they say, or that it's okay to have ex post facto changes to our
They've
bylaws?
already said that.
Okay, so once again, all we're doing is pointing out the truth. Why is everybody so afraid of the truth?
I don't think they want to hear
I'm
the
not
truth.
afraid of the truth. I just don't believe that it's part of that it's a bylaw. I just don't believe it's in the right spot.
Well, then where should it go?
It should be a letter from the chairman, or a letter from the chairman of, or the letter from the committee, or a letter from with it's put it in public with your.
So posted as a separate document?
As a separate document, it's a frustration. It's not a bylaw. And I'm a parliamentarian. I can't just.
Okay, so
sort of-
rather than calling it forward, then if it's not going to the board, to the
a
into the
statement from the
bylaws.
bylaws committee to be read in public, to be put in the public record. I mean, that would be. You know, I'm sorry. I have to just stop this. It's annoying me. Because the idea here is to document the frustration that you have, that instead of this being an independent organization, that it was intended to be when it was first formed many, many years ago. That it has become sort of a, under the thumb.
Well, it's
And-
not. That's not really true either.
Well, I think he's right. I think there's plenty of times where
We're here to try to bail out this council persons. So in case if they,
That's not how it was intended.
but I'm saying is no. So in case if they do something people don't like, they blame it on the neighborhood council. They told us to do it, and so I'm off the hook.
I understand what it feels like and what it seems like it's acting as, but that's not the intention of the committee in the beginning.
The fact that the neighborhood councils were doing what they're intended to do explains why the city has been doing what it does, is to make the neighborhood councils ineffective or to go away.
Right. So I would be more inclined and happily inclined to sort of edit that a little bit so it's a little bit more professional and less sort of like, and put it as a public document on record and read it into the meeting.
And
Can we
post it
send it
to
to
the
the board
website.
for them to adopt it?
Yeah, either way,
Yes.
the board has to adopt it, so why don't we just go ahead and pass the motion tonight? If you've got alternative verbiage, or you got alternative verbiage, it
I
can be
don't
brought
think
up
it
at the
belongs
board.
in the dialogues. I think it may be all true, but I don't think it belongs there.
Well, like I said, if it doesn't go in the bylaws, it goes on the webpage, next to the bylaws and the operating procedures.
Statement from the chairman, statement from the bylaws chair, statement from the bylaws
from the board.
committee, or from whoever. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. That's
Put it on the
public record that
website.
you want to have,
It's okay
and
with
you
me.
want to tell your stakeholders, which is,
Okay,
if that's
so
what
we're,
you're feeling, stakeholders aren't really aware what's going on.
so
in
it's
the
no
neighborhood
longer a
council.
forward.
Just statement.
Statement to stakeholders.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to put it on the website?
And a statement to
Fine with me.
stakeholders really doesn't have to come from the bylaws committee.
If the board's gonna vote on it, either has to come from a committee, where it's been voted on and approved, or it's gonna have to be approved by at least 2 board members at a committee. So, since we're already having the meeting, and it's already agendized, we can change it from being an addition to the,
Well, can I do a quick little, maybe word modification? If you don't,
Yeah.
because this is to the stakeholders, not to the people at Dunn or whoever you're so angry with. So,
no, I'm angry with all of them, including the stakeholders that voted for all these assholes.
no, but I love people, so I can't be so mean to them.
I do too, but only if they're cooked properly. And I really wish the guys would raise these objections when I email them.
Well, I do, you email it in such like a generic, I don't know where it's coming from. You can keep going while I'm doing this.
Well, we're on this my item, we can't go anywhere until.
Okay, fine, you should keep talking about it.
I'm done talking about the whole issue.
Whereas
weeks
this one,
ago. I'm
this
ready
one
to-
is passed through for board approval.
That's further on down the agenda.
I'm just saying is that, it's not, you can get what you want.
This is passed through to the board for approval too. There's no difference between any of the items on tonight's.
Well, one's part of the bylaws, one is a normal.
Well, actually, all 3 items were originally for the bylaws, a forward, a preamble, and a change.
I tell you what, I will submit an amendment to that to you to bring to the meeting. Right? Do I have to be there to do it?
You'll have to give it to Richard so he can make it as a friendly amendment as a board member.
Okay. With more more. Professional is the word I want to use, but
Professional is
that's a
not
good
the
word.
right term.
Polish might be the right word.
This is perfectly professional. It's just not very polite.
More
I don't
polite.
deal in polite. I deal
I
in
know, but I
accurate.
do deal in polite, and I think that you alienate stakeholders when you don't deal in polite.
Here.
Stakeholders should remember the same thing when they're not polite. But I'm
I
just
agree.
a stakeholder. I'm not a board member. How can I alienate stakeholders when I'm not an elected official? I'm just another stakeholder. So, we're going to change this to the statement of the stakeholders be posted on the board webpage.
Sure.
Possible friendly amendments at the board meeting. Nancy will write them.
Yeah, but the motion, but right now, let's not vote on how and where it's gonna be posted, let's vote on that we agree to make this a public document.
Okay,
Because
And send-
otherwise you get too many rules you have to follow.
And send it to the board.
that's what I'm saying. We're going to vote on this motion that the board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council votes to post the following statement to stakeholders on the board webpage with the operating procedures and the bylaws. Words to that effect. And then
As,
text
as,
yes.
as amended, as amended
It
in the
can't,
meeting.
right now it's not amended. If it gets amended, it'll be because of a friendly amendment at the board meeting.
Okay,
You don't have any verbiage to add here now, we can't amend it
okay, I
now.
can't think this quick, okay.
Alrighty?
Okay, fine.
So, the Board of Students and Neighborhood Council votes to post the following statement to stakeholders on their webpage, along with the bylaws and operating procedures.
No, the Studio City Neighborhood Council will make this make this a public document to stakeholders in their, you know what I mean?
If we post it to the webpage, it's voted on by the board, it's posted to the webpage, it's a public document.
Yes.
You're splitting non-existent hairs.
I'm just trying to make
It's
myself.
never gonna get see it.
I'm just trying to get a motion out the door so we can go on to the next
Fine.
one.
Okay.
Alrighty, all in favor of submitting this as a public statement to be posted?
Sure.
Aye.
Moving rapidly along.
Is
Okay.
that your, can I have that copy? Do you need that copy? Thank you. Then I'll remember to do it in my book.
Item number 7, preamble. And this is to address yet another issue with the city attorney and Dunn saying, oh my God, what do these words in your bylaws mean? Even though these words were all approved by Dunn and by the city attorney, and most of them come directly from their proposed template.
Do we have that document where they're asking us that?
It was sent to board members. I'm not a board member. I was just told.
Does the board members, can we have that document? Like, we should be able to read what their problem is.
They said we did not define the word unexcused. We did not define the word absence. We did not define the word whatever. Basic, common, everyday English usage words.
Well, let me see if they're defined in Robert's Rules of Orders, because then they will be defined. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
They aren't defined if the city attorney says they're not defined, and the city attorney said they're not defined, and that's why we couldn't do X, Y, Z, okay? They are not interested in Robert's Rules of Order.
But Robert's
They're-
Rules of Orders is in our bylaws, and that is the
And if the
backup
city
that you go
attorney
to.
says, we don't care, you can't do it, they said, we don't care and you can't do it. So rather than go through and define every single word in the bylaws, which is basically what they're insinuating we had to do, we had a preamble. It reads as follows. For the purposes of interpreting and following the bylaws and operating procedure of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, all words used therein will be deemed to have their usual, customary, and generally accepted definition and meaning in daily use as given in the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary of Successors. And they list the URL. Common everyday American English language, accepted nationwide standard, not a lawyer's, which is why we're not using blacks.
Fine for absence, fine for, what other words? Fine for absence, fine for,
No, this addresses every single word in the bylaws so they can never again say, well, you didn't define what the word means. And they came up with, oh, you didn't define what the word means because it was a latch-ditch excuse to stop. You know, they didn't have anything valid, so they just said, oh my God, you didn't define it, even though their template that uses those words didn't have definitions of those words. This is back to the city attorney pulling things out of their fourth point of contact to do whatever they want, when they
I
want.
know, but we don't have to respond to everything. We can,
Yes, we do.
well, then where's the document that we're responding to?
Responding to the fact that, you know, once again, I don't see these documents, they're sent to board members.
Well, the board member has to send to you what the issue is.
I was told in general that the board, that they objected to the fact that the words weren't defined. Patrice, you've seen it, Alex, you've seen it, Richard, you've seen it. Isn't that what they said about excused and absence?
That's why I wanted to go, in case there was a discrepancy in Merriam-Webster, to have
There
blacks.
isn't a
But the
As a
problem
backup.
is that they're gonna be different, and that
Yeah,
is the
and
problem.
Merriam-Webster is, that's why this says, their usual, customarily, and generally accepted definition and meaning in daily use, as normal people use them,
But that's
not lawyers.
Yeah,
That's,
These bylaws are designed by normal people, for normal people, and the lawyers come in and say, oh my God, you didn't define that, only when it's convenient for them.
yeah, but here's the question, they're not asking you to define what an absence is. An absence
they
is
were.
an absence is when somebody's not at the table, when somebody's not
That
in the
was
room.
said to the city attorney. You know what the city attorney said?
But you didn't define what was excused and what was not excused. Do they have to tell people beforehand?
No, they
Do
said
have
we
to-
didn't define absence, period. And everybody who's been through at least sixth grade knows what an excused absence is and an unexcused absence is. They know what tardy is. If you work for a living and you don't call in that you're gonna be late, or you pick up sticks and leave early, you don't have a job. This is no different.
Can I ask if there's any board members here have the letter from the Dunn or
I
have,
could look it up,
because
can I say anything? I just want to interject that I know of other neighborhood councils that they, one specifically where it says if a board member is present for half the meeting, then, so they're specific. If you're there for 50% of the meeting, then it counts.
Yeah, but
So
That has nothing to do with the definitions of all the
But we don't have
words.
no specifics in ours.
But
yes,
Let me see if I can find
but
it.
that's
An
what,
But it's
explanation is
easier to find by just say if they showed up on the MER sheet and they took roll, they're there.
Once again, we're not discussing the actual definition, we're defining the meaning of the word, all the words in all of the bylaws and all of the operating procedures. So we never have to go through this again of what does is.
you're going to have to go through it again if you're not answering their question.
We are answering their question. We're telling them what the words mean. Every single word in there means whatever the average, normal, everyday, common ground usage is. Not what some lawyer came up with,
It still needs to be
not
specified.
what some political hack comes
It
up
still needs
with.
to be specified.
It
Doesn't
is
matter.
specified.
It is not specified. If you want to bring specification into it, I suggest you do that.
We did. We defined it by what the dictionary calls for.
No.
Normal,
What is-
everyday use.
what is-
Okay, we're done with this.
It's what is
This is not your
constructive-
comment card.
I understand, but it's constructive notice, and there is no constructive notice in those definitions.
But
Therefore, you can't use
wouldn't
it.
it be easier just to rely upon the sign-in sheet at the beginning of the day, the actual, they take roll?
No.
Why not?
Once again, that's up to the board.
What I'm saying is that is something that gets turned in, and so it's not, it's supposed to. become
Actually, I don't
part of
think
the
we
record.
do sign-in sheets there. We do roll call, and we
The
take
roll call, but,
we take notes when people leave.
okay, why can't that be the,
Once again, we're not talking about that now, Richard.
okay, go
We're
on.
talking about the preamble. The only thing we're talking about is the preamble. All right?
No, okay, well, I'm going back to, I'm here because I know parliamentary. I'm going to tell you, a preamble is also known as the purpose or the objective. We have it as an Article 2. It's listed right here. It should be concisely expressed in a single sentence.
Okay,
The
fine.
statement should be a general application about the business of the society. That's what the preamble should be. That's what if you want to
Fine.
add a glossary at the end, that's a glossary, that's definitions, that's fine.
Okay.
That will take more work, but that will, that,
No,
I'm
no, we're
happy
not
to
going
do
to do a
that.
glossary of every bing word in the damn bylaws. So I'll just append a copy of the dictionary to it, and people can look it up. You're defeating the purpose of keeping it simple, keeping it clear, keeping it so the average citizen can read in plain, simple English, what does all this stuff mean? The average person who can read our bylaws for content knows what the words mean in everyday common use. Only a lawyer looking for an excuse could read our clear, concise bylaws and go, oh my God, what does that mean? Oh, nobody could possibly tell. Oh.
But that's what the city attorneys are doing.
Because they
Their
aren't
job.
smart enough to have a job at a real law firm, okay?
I'm just saying is that the person making the criteria are not the people you want to have it made for.
The people coming up with excuses are the people who are looking for excuses to avoid doing what they're supposed to do. Okay? What we're doing here, or trying to do here, and once again, if you guys had these objections, it would be nice if you brought them up ahead of time so we could possibly work on changing where it went. But if we're not going to make this a preamble, and we're not putting a glossary at the end of the bylaws, because nobody at the board is going to sit through voting for that anyway. It is utterly ridiculous anyway, because once again, we're using plain, simple language.
Yes, but you're not answering the question. Because the question
What's the question?
The question isn't what does absence mean? The question is how are you calculating an absence?
No, the question here is, how do we tell everybody and their grandmother from now until the end of time, or until the SCNC goes away because the city gets tired of neighborhood councils in general, how do I know what the words in this bylaws mean?
Criteria. And definition.
It's real simple.
It's not their job to know, it's our job to know. And it's the
No,
chair.
anybody reads the document, and the complaint was, oh my God, you didn't define these words. Well, fine, we're defining the words. We're defining every single word in the bylaws all at once. Why? Because it's simple, it's consistent, and simplicity is much better for law than otherwise we're gonna have a 5,000-page bylaws that
Exactly.
nobody can read.
Exactly, agreed.
So that's why, now, if this should not be a preamble according to the parliamentary procedures, where do we put it as part of the bylaws?
It's self-evident. The words mean what they
It's
are.
not self, I understand that. You understand that. Thank you, but you're not a city attorney, neither am I. Nobody else in this room is.
But if we, yes, I agree.
The only reason we have to do that is because they are being willfully, intellectually dishonest, okay? That's 90% of our bylaws over the years, and 90% of the changes is because somebody downtown went out of their way to be difficult about something. Or somebody found a loophole and tried to exploit it,
Well,
and it had to be changed.
Their prototype does not have definitions of absence.
Thank you.
either.
Yet, and we used their exact verbiage, and yet they claim, oh my God, it's invalid because it doesn't have a definition. We're back to the snake swallowing itself. So, your objection is, oh my God, it can't be a preamble. Fine. Where do we put it in the bylaws?
Well, you just define the words as they come up.
Then we have a 5,000-page bylaw, and we got to make 1,001 changes. Each one is a pain in the ass to submit, and done, bonk, and everybody else will say, it's like work. What is wrong with simplicity?
Simplicity is the words mean what they say. You
Seriously.
You test my logic. I got an A in logic. If I could read what the problem was. then
The
I would.
problem is...
I know, I need
people-
to read it. I need to read, I need to see what they said.
No, the problem is very
I
simple.
don't have my SC on here. My
The
SC.
problem is very simple. The complaint from downtown was, oh my God, you didn't define what words mean. The average everyday citizen knows what absence means, excused means, unexcused.
Criterion.
The average intelligent citizen knows. Anybody who's been through at least 6th grade knows what attendance and non-attendance is.
And are we referring to?
And we're referring to
the
every other
absence here?
single word in these bylaws that they may find at a future time to go, oh my God, you didn't define it. So
And
we
I
are
would-
defining every single word in the
Well,
bylaws for future reference
No.
to make the problem a non-problem. It can never be raised again because we've defined every single word in the bylaws without going through and adding thousands of lines of text.
Yeah, well, neither of these are gonna work. The answer is that the president or the chairperson defines it. They decide. Right here,
One more time,
an unexcused absence.
one more time. They claim that does not mean what it says because it is not defined, okay?
Yeah, but we don't.
You're trying to be sensible, we're dealing with the city.
So what did they ask us to do? Did they ask us to rewrite our bylaws? What did they ask of us?
I was told the problem was his words were not defined. Okay?
Okay, well, what's
Rather
it-
than go through and try to define every specific term in the bylaws, which is thousands of lines of text, dozens of motions, dozens of meetings at the board meeting, which may or may not pass, we had a simple thing that explains the definitions of every single word in the bylaws all at one and gives a standard that anyone could refer to. Problem solved.
No, the problem's not solved.
No, it's just
The problem is solved. We've defined every single word in the bylaws. Anybody goes, I don't know what that means. Here's a dictionary. Oh,
But they'll argue as to what the dictionary says,
you know,
what it means. You know, if that's the problem, you just chasing your tail because
I'm not chasing my tail. I made a very simple motion that says words mean what they say and what everybody knows they mean. That's
which
not hard.
brings up arguments. When you
You
say
know-
that, it brings up arguments.
I can't help stupid people.
Okay, but that is why the California codes are hundreds of books long.
Well, that because a lot of people paid a lot of politicians a lot of money to make loopholes in there so they could get rich at everybody else's expense.
Well, every time
We're not politicians. We're
so
not
every
writing
time
loopholes.
every time a suit went the wrong way, the legislature tried to fix it, and that's why we have these huge convoluted.
And once again, we're not trying to reproduce the California codes in our bylaws. We're trying to keep it simple. So we either define every single damn word in there, either in a glossary or by long-winded explanations in each section where they're used.
Or we ignore their comment. We've written
We're
the
not
bylaws.
allowed to ignore their
Of
comments.
course we are.
No, we're not.
What are they gonna do? Fire us?
You know, once again, I'm not a board member. When the city attorney says, they tend to follow what they're told. Why? I could go on conjecture there, but I'm not going to. But,
I
in my
think,
mind, the simple way of dealing with this is to make a definition once and for all for every single word in there. We're done. And the board can vote on this and approve it, or not approve it, or the board approves it.
I will
and the
vote-
board
this is what
approves
I will
it,
do. This is
and
what I
it
will do.
goes and it goes downtown, and done to the city attorney, have another shit hemorrhage because, oh my God, they painted us to a quarter. Then they turned it down anyway. But they're on record as not allowing us to fix the problem they claim
But
exists.
I will do this for you, Richard. I will vote to send that statement back to Dunn, that everyone, every stakeholder, and every board member, and every person in Studio City understands the words in the document to be basic words in Merriam's dictionary.
Okay, but
But I will not put it in the bylaws because it's ridiculous.
this entire process has become ridiculous. Well, I'm working within inside the process that they have defined for us. This
Well-
statement you want to send
And the
will have
statements.
about as much meaning as the air I'm spewing out of my mouth right now.
Well,
None.
I understand.
It's just
so,
air.
I understand.
It's
So
vibrations.
you have to let go of the. You just have to.
No, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do
But
as
the
chair.
problem is
Well,
that the Merriam-Webster dictionary may have alternate definitions.
It's only got 3 for the words, some of the words we're talking about now. And once again, we're back to usual, customary, and generally accepted definition and meaning. And that's in the context of whatever sentences you're reading.
But people can argue about that.
People can argue about everything, anything. That's not the point. We're trying to appeal to the 80% of the people that are both intelligent and reasonable. The rest of the 20%, you're never going to win anyway. So, perfect is the enemy of good enough. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be an objection or an objection. Why not this? Why not that?
And that's not bad. And listen, that makes.
It gets in the way of getting normal things done by normal people, which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're on the bylaws committee. It's not.
But once again, we're just trying to promulgate useful, rational,
So-
simple and easy to use stuff, not complex gobbledygook. That's why we're not lawyers.
So our bylaws say that an unexcused absence.
We're not talking about that now. I'm talking about every single
but-
word in the bylaws. Unexcused absence is the next motion.
Oh.
We're talking about definitions of every single possibly questionable word in the bylaws.
I'm happy to put that statement out and make it a public statement. I am not willing to put it into the bylaws. I'll put it in the operating agreement.
Operating procedures is overruled by the bylaws. So anything the operating procedure says what the words mean in bylaws is inoperative because the operating procedures are subordinate to bylaws. It has to be in bylaws. It doesn't have to be a
No,
preamble.
it's ridiculous to be in bylaws.
I agree with you. This is ridiculous. The city has made it necessary. The city having made it necessary, it's no longer ridiculous. It's the way things work in the neighborhood councils.
Yeah, well,
In the perfect world, I agree with you. We're not in the perfect world. We're in the neighborhood councils.
I try to make that.
We're in the city of Los Angeles. A town so corrupt it makes Chicago look like heaven. So, once again, you say it can't be a preamble. What can it be? Where does it go in the bylaws? There's got to be a place for it.
Definitions of words go in a glossary at the end.
Fine, so
general.
we'll add this as a glossary.
Sure.
All ready? So instead of
Fine. Add it as a glossary.
Pass it already so we can take it to the board. Come on. Jeez.
Yeah, so
Just do it.
put it
It's not
as a
gonna see the light
glossary,
of
as
day.
is, where is, and we'll go from there.
if you got someplace else to go, go.
No, I'm just. Pass
Okay,
it.
we're going to put it in the glossary. So the
Yes.
Board of Studio
Yeah, put
City
it in the-
votes to add the
Bylaws
following
committee
verbiage
recommends that this, yeah.
Glossary, yes.
as a glossary to be added at the end of the bylaws. All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Wait, I'm writing on the wrong one. Alrighty, moving rapidly along to number 8. Presentation, discussion, and possible motion regarding adding pre-approved city verbiage to Article V, Section 7 of the SCNC Bylaws. Once again, this will be a motion.
Where do we have those?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
This is this?
No, the very bottom section.
This is this.
Where it says draft.
Okay. Okay.
Let me read it first. A board member shall be automatically removed from the board upon 2 unexcused absences of properly noticed board meetings, or upon 2 unexcused absences from properly noticed meetings of committees in which the board member is a member, or a combination of the two, in other words, 1 and 1, during any one term of office. In other words, if you get reelected, you reset to 0. Okay? An unexcused absence shall occur when a member cannot provide the president or committee chair a reasonable explanation for their absence, which, by definition, includes late arrivals and early departures from said meetings, either before, during, or within a 24 hours after said absence occurs, unless prevented by extenuating circumstances, such as, but not limited to, a natural disaster, traffic accident, or hospitalization. Verbal notification must be followed with notification in writing within 72 hours, text, email, fax, etc., and it is the prerogative of the president/chair to require documentation to support the given explanation. Each council board member absence shall be recorded in the council's meeting minutes or committee meeting minutes, and that upon missing the required numbers of board/committee meetings for removal, the board president shall notify the member and provide notice to that board member that the seat has now been declared vacant. Okay, so if you have to leave a meeting early, you tell the chair or the president, hey, I gotta leave. You're at the meeting and your babysitter has a disaster at home, I gotta go. Okay, you're running late because traffic or whatever, I'm coming to the meeting, but I'm gonna be late. Unless it's every single time, you're automatically excused. You pick up sticks and walk out of the meeting without saying anything, because, you're just taking your toys and going home, that's unexcused. You can't pick up and leave your job without permission. Being on the board is a job. It may be unpaid, it may be voluntary, but you're still a member, you're still an employee. And you're responsible to all the stakeholders. They voted you to be in there. So by leaving, you're denying the people you're supposed to represent your representation.
Okay. Forthwith to the board.
Okay?
No, I have got some, and I did email you these comments.
Okay, well, like I said, I was at the doctor's office.
So in parliamentary, the power to appoint is the power to remove. Because we cannot remove an elected official, that's why if they have 2 unexcused absences, they shall be removed. They must be removed, period. They shall be removed, that's required. With the committee, it is not a shall because they were appointed. They can be removed at any time, at any will, by the person who appointed them on a committee, period. So you've appointed me to the seat, at any time you can say, you're done, Nancy.
I understand that.
When you combine the two, you combine the authority and the line of authority. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So a combination of the two doesn't work for me.
Okay, well,
And-
board members are required to participate in at least one committee.
Correct. So
Part of participating is showing up for the meetings.
So-
If you're excused, that's fine. If you're unexcused, it's basically the same thing as missing a board member. The board member has an obligation to attend the meetings. If they can't make it, they have an obligation to announce that, hey, I need an excuse. And they're almost always
you're-
granted, unless it's being abused.
yes, there's nothing you're telling me here that I don't know. What can happen if they don't go to their committee meetings is they're removed from the committee. What happens if they don't go to the board meetings is they're removed from the board. You can't intertwine the
It's been the
two.
board policy for years that missing a committee meeting for a board member without an excuse is as bad as missing a board meeting. I'm not changing that policy.
The second issue that I have is this whole section here is already in here. It's summed up. The president or the committee chairperson has, and they're supposed to have, the full reign of decision-making.
I get that. Now you're back to the city attorney said words don't mean what they say.
Well, that,
Is the city attorney, and that's done, and it's them deliberately hamstringing this and other neighborhood councils any way they can to make us as ineffective as possible so people will quit participating in the system. Then they can all get rid of the neighborhood councils and do whatever the hell they want.
okay, well, if you use the Dunn's words and you have their bylaws and their words, they really can't say much more about it as far as I'm concerned.
They have in the
Here's-
past.
Here's the problem. As soon as you start saying a natural disaster, a traffic accident, or hospitalization, I know you say such as, so those are just examples. But as soon as you start doing that, then we start nitpicking, right?
No, I agree with you. All of this is completely unnecessary. except for the fact that the city made it mandatory. Okay? You're dealing in the perfect world where everybody does what they're supposed to do and things make sense and words mean what they say. We're dealing with the city of Los
Well, if
Angeles.
the city made it mandatory, but the bylaws committee doesn't vote for it, then now
If
what
we
are they gonna
don't,
do?
we have to make these changes.
Well, then
Otherwise-
why is it even on our listed things
I
to
like
do?
it goes straight
Because
to the
if
board.
we don't,
Let them decide.
right now we have no absence policy courtesy of city attorney's office. There is no policy. They've
The
said,
absence policy is at the discretion of the chairperson.
no, it isn't. It's at the discretion of the city attorney's office who said, no, it's not a absence policy. Anyway, I'm sorry, we had public comment from Alex
Yes, hi.
and Victoria. Feel free.
First of all, I'd like to just say, I don't know, and this is just an idea, I don't know if we have an absence problem in the board, from my observation, so I don't even know why we're dwelling on this. Secondly, and this might allude to the earlier item, we're talking about two different things, and I think, Nancy, you spoke about it. Criteria and definition are two different things. Anyone can make up what is an absence. Anyone can make up what is a whatever, being tardy. Why don't you guys just focus on defining those things rather than just completely taking over our whole bylaws and micromanaging every single word? First of all, do we have a problem with absences and tardinesses? I don't see it.
Well, we have people
And you know,
walking out.
and guess
There are
what?
other board members that think
Okay.
you do.
Okay, well,
That's-
I'm sure all those quote-unquote other board members that have also brought forth the idea about 15-year-olds voting. I'd like to know who these people are that are coming forth, because I don't hear it at all when I'm on the board. But the point is, the bottom line is that really, what needs to be done here is if you have an issue with what entails, what is criteria for an absence or a tardy, why don't you guys just focus on that? And that's it. Why are we talking on a macro change to all of the of our bylaws? It doesn't. We're talking about all these peripheral side things that. And I'm going to go to the last point, and I appreciate you letting me speak.
Yeah, I forgot to start the timer, so wind it up, please.
It's okay. The key is that what no matter what you pass also now is not retroactive and won't change anything that's happened in the past. So the bottom line is this: if there was an issue with someone being tardy or not or absent, focus on what this board, what is this board's criteria for a tardy or an absence. It could change from here to Echo Park. It changes. There is no what is an absence by Merriam-Webster, because Merriam-Webster maybe didn't belong to a neighborhood council. So my point I'm trying to say is why don't we focus on that and maybe cut to the chase a little bit. That's it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Victoria?
I'm probably not the smartest person in the room, but I'm completely mystified as to why these issues had to have a special meeting and couldn't wait until the regular meeting next week. I cannot imagine why.
The regular meeting of what, agenda?
It's bylaws meeting.
3 weeks.
Because they wanted them to come before the board at this board meeting because there's only
Who's
There's-
they?
board members, okay? The problem we have is if we were not facing a bylaws cutoff for submission to the city, because it's gonna take them at least a year between now and the next election to get around to okaying all these or not okaying them, we have to submit them no later than. So we're facing a hard and fast deadline. And I was given these agenda items to bring up. I brought them up. And we take it from there. You know, if we,
When is the deadline?
before the April meeting, before the April board meeting. I think it's April 15th. So anything we bring forward has to be voted on and approved by the board with what, 2/3 majority, and submitted to downtown no later than. Or we're at a deadline, we're dead, and this bylaws committee really probably won't meet at all unless one of our other obligations comes up for months at a time.
Well, I'd like to have this
Are you
thing
finished?
as is written, exactly the way you were basically put on the agenda to decide by the board itself,
That's
basically.
pretty much all we ever
As
do.
is written, not just your part, the whole thing, this whole sheet, as it is. This is
Okay.
what's going on. Do we want to change? Yes or no?
I can provide that as a background document that just it can't be the motion.
Can I, all of this, if this is important, by the way, if this is what the chairman wants, that's for me. If the chairman wants this as what the definition is for them to run the meetings and so people, the board members can have an idea of what it is to be absent, I would highly recommend that this goes in the operating procedures. And this can change with president and chairman as they come and as they go. And I would leave the bylaws as is because it is the same thing and it is much more vague here and it is much more specific here and this can be changed with without permission from Don. And this is Don language, I think. That would be my
Well,
recommendation.
the first paragraph is,
Besides the combination of the two, it's fine. It's already in there.
I understand, and that's one of the things that Dunn, the city attorney, said didn't mean anything because it wasn't defined. So we're back to the same old problem. It's not that our bylaws aren't clear and concise and anybody with an IQ larger than a hat size can understand them. It's that people downtown didn't want them to be usable, so they flat out said they don't mean what they say. And they couldn't give you a good, solid, rational explanation as to why other than because we said so. It's like dealing with 3-year-olds.
Well, that just puts us in a circular conversation.
Once again, we're subordinate to them. We have no choice but to either react or become even more useless than we are.
I
didn't design this game. I don't even like playing it.
You're back to my things. Do the minimum required by the board, by done, and then be done with the bylaws, and turn
But
it back on them, saying this.
Once
is what
again,
you-
as
that's
I
it.
just said, most of this in a sane world would be utterly unnecessary. But because the city is manipulating the neighborhood councils for their own private goals, which do not include representing stakeholders, or allowing stakeholders to have a fair voice in their neighborhoods, we have to react to what Dunn does.
Do you know if the current chairman, if this
Which
is
chairman?
the board, the president? I don't know what is the title.
The president.
The president. If this is the parameters that the president wants to implement,
I would imagine so, but once again, it's up to them to decide at the
but the
board meeting.
president only has one vote, and I will be voting for whatever the president wants to implement because that is the job of the president.
Why can't we just leave the bylaws as they are, add this to the operating procedures, basically, if they overlap, then you've covered your butt and you can move on.
What's the middle paragraph?
Just everything from draft down, just put that.
Because the operating procedures are overruled by the bylaws, and the bylaws are unclear, and nobody knows what they mean, then what's in the operating procedures is a waste of ink and paper.
No, it defines more specifically.
And it has no authority over the bylaws. So the bylaws are declared,
But it's not unlike some other times, it does not conflict with the bylaws. They're
once again,
compatible.
if the bylaws are declared to be unclear and therefore unenforceable, the operating procedures can't possibly have an effect because they are subordinate to the bylaws.
No, you're thinking it's wrong. I mean,
No,
you're-
I'm thinking it perfectly clearly. If the bylaws are declared invalid, the operating procedures have no weight at all because they can't apply to something that doesn't.
But the operating procedures clarify the bylaws. All they want is clarification. This will give them clarification, and we can move on.
Yeah, they do.
It would give them the clarification the city's asking for. Simple as that. So they want clarification, they'll have clarification. You know,
I don't think that's the way things work. Once again, the bylaws overrule the operating procedures. Therefore,
Yeah.
the bylaws, and if there is a conflict between the two, the bylaws take priority.
Correct. But there's no conflict.
but there is no.
But if we're told that the bylaws have the section that they allegedly apply to has no meaning,
Tell them it's in the operating procedures.
and they'll say it doesn't matter, the bylaws are no good. You can't amend or affect something that's been declared null and void. I mean, I totally agree with you. In a rational, sane, above board, and ethical organization, the city of Los Angeles is not, we put all this stuff in the bylaw, in the operating procedures. And we wouldn't have to amend all sorts of different stuff in the bylaws. But we're dealing with the city of LA. It's Chinatown, Jake. They want them to mean whatever they want them to mean. And I've give 5 will get you 10. We send this downtown to be approved, assuming the board gives a 2/3 approval on it. Done, and the city attorney will study it until it's too late to do anything, then reject it.
Yeah, so if we're back to, if you're back to, this is not about actually helping and serving this community.
It is about helping and serving the community.
This board, this chairman, this stakeholders.
We're doing, right now, every time we turn around, the city says we can't do what our bylaws say we can
It
do.
just says they want clarification. So give them clarification.
This is a clarification. It clarifies the bylaws. If you clarify that through the operating procedures and the bylaws are still declared invalid, you've got no
The
clarification.
bylaws are not considered invalid. They just thought they were ambiguous. This would clear up the ambiguity right there. Written as you wrote it, just
So put this whole thing in the operating procedures?
Yes. The second, well, the second.
everything you wrote from draft down, put in operating procedures. It clarifies the bylaws.
Okay, so we're going to put this
I
in
still have a
the.
problem with the combination of the two. I still,
I understand what
I'm
you're
happy
saying.
for you, but we're following board precedent.
I'm not too
You know, we're in the
as long as
real,
it's in the operating
we're in the
procedures.
real world, not the Browns, not the Robert's Rules of Order world. Okay.
Sorry.
Reality is, you probably should have spent some time in the infantry. You get a slightly different viewpoint on things. Alrighty. Not that I don't greatly respect and appreciate your, additions to this committee. So we're going to add this to the operating procedures, which I don't have a copy of, in the appropriate section. So the board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council votes to amend section, article section, whatever of the bylaws,
7.
or not, the operating procedures.
Oh, the operating procedures.
So the operating procedures.
I just
right.
happen to have a copy. And I have done
There's
that,
only
too.
about 7 pages of them.
Yeah.
Article, what am I looking for? Conduct of meetings, this was a disaster too. I think you could find out a lot faster than I can. Committees,
Let me see.
I'm looking for, where don't we have a?
So find a place to put it. I just like to have this put toward the board as part of the operating procedures.
See, there's not even really a section operating procedures that's appropriate
Fine,
for
and add it.
We'd have to add, okay, let's see, conduct of meeting. And this is only, see, that's the other fun thing, is this only applies to the board. It doesn't really say much about committee meetings.
Part of that is because committees are so malleable, because
They're committees.
Well, committees
they
are,
can't do anything. They
but they're
can't spend any money.
administrative subdivision of the board.
Yeah,
I understand, but committee members can be thrown off as quick as they're put on, and they can't spend any. They're so,
Well-
there's not that much to worry
Okay.
about controlling, because the chairman just runs it the way they want to get the job done is the point.
which is what we try to do here. Alrighty,
Just say in whatever.
like I said, there's not really an appropriate place for it here in operating procedures.
You can
Unless
find-
we'd have to create one that says like attendance.
Fine, do exactly that, and promote and propose exactly that, and hopefully it'll get voted on the first vote, and then you move on.
Okay, so the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council votes to add the following verbiage to the operating procedures in a section to be labeled attendance.
Right. Okay. And it's not bylaws, so the city has nothing to say about it.
Alrighty, all in favor?
Aye.
Sold.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Comments from members on subject matter within the committee's jurisdiction?
No, nothing.
No. Closing comments. Thank you for being here. It went a little longer than I planned, but it was still fairly productive.
Okay. Has everybody signed in?